In this episode, we're going to be talking to Michael Murdoch from Story Cube. I'm excited for you to hear what he's built and he put together, and all the way from London, UK. Would love for you to be hearing this conversation. But before we get started, folks, don't forget to subscribe to this podcast. Please give us a review. Let us know, has this podcast been helpful to you? Leave a review and let us know how we are doing. Also, just give this podcast a rating so that we can certainly understand how you feel about it. Without this, it's very difficult for us to know your feedback. So this is one way of helping us, helping you. Before we get started, please do that, and let's just go and meet Michael from Story Cube right now. Michael, thank you for joining us. How are you? It's good to have you here.
Very good, Ricardo. Thank you very much for having me.
Awesome. Well, why don't we just jump right into it? We're gonna just start off with telling us who you are and what you do.
Sure. Okay, so I'm a brand strategist. I've been for 15 to 20 years or so. I run a company called The House. It's based in London, UK. The House is a branding and marketing agency. We work with organizations all over the world and focus mainly on brand identity, creating guidelines, strategy, animation sometimes, and websites. But also out of that has come a tool that I'm going to talk to you about today called Story Cube. And that's a framework to help anyone really to explain what they do, particularly helping entrepreneurs and small businesses.
Awesome. I mean, that's awesome. I'm excited to hear more about that. So, to talk to me a little about how did you get to this point from a marketing perspective? What were you doing before? How did you get to here today?
Yeah, I'll give you a brief history. So I started off as a graphic designer. That's what I studied at university in the UK. I did a little bit of studying in Hong Kong as well. I like an international point of view, and I like traveling, so that scratched an itch. I worked in Hong Kong for a couple of years at a brand consultancy, working with large corporates. Came back to London, did the same, dotting around various agencies, sort of trying to learn as much as I can, anything from animation to building websites to graphic design itself and brand development, and essentially learned a lot, working with lots of different types of companies. In 2009, I started The House at the pretty much the start of the financial collapse. So it's an interesting time to begin a company, but it keeps you working hard, and keeps you thinking and on your toes. And over the years, I've worked with so many different types of businesses. Some are international organizations, some are large corporates, and some are literally one-person companies. But I've noticed similarities for all. They all want to explain what they do. They want to communicate in the best possible way, often to raise awareness, obviously to sell things, quite often for donations, because we work with lots of charities and social enterprises. And to this point, we realized that we were getting asked the same things on a regular basis, particularly in the creative brief. And it was a case of, well, can we put that together in a package? Can we deliver that back to people, and provide a framework, which StoryCube is, and enable anyone really to pick up that framework and to take it if they put in the hard work. They're using our framework and our experience and expertise. They can then take it forward themselves and implement it within their own organizations.
Awesome. And so this obviously resulted in a tool that we're going to be talking about today. So let's talk about this tool. Tell us about it. What is it? And tell us, how did we now come up with this idea for using this tool?
Yeah, so we're about 7 years into running the agency, picking up all the experience, developing our creative brief process, the discovery process to really get under the skin of what clients want and need, and how to turn that brief into something that we can communicate. So that's the basis of Story Cube. And Story Cube, we see it as a framework to help anyone explain what they do. It's particularly good for entrepreneurs, particularly good for startup business, scaling businesses, but really for any business that's growing. We developed it over the last 3 or 4 years, myself and my business partner on this called Robbie Dale. And that really formulated and started to be solidified when we were delivering monthly workshops at the British Library in London. Now, essentially, they were focused around branding. We actually called it branding on a budget. But every month, we'd have a group of people in the room. We'd take them through a 3-hour workshop, and we'd try to teach them almost everything we knew about branding in that workshop. And it was a bit of a brain dump, but it gave us the platform to test out our ideas. So that was essentially the start of it. And every month we'd get the feedback. It was largely positive, but we wanted to improve it as much as we could. So we evolved that over the space of about 6 to 12 months into what Story Cube is looking like today. And that essentially is a framework where there's 6 sides, hence the cube. There were 12 sides at one point, but it was just too much to handle. So we wanted to simplify, and it was to try and help any organization to give them like the ingredients, or as I say, the framework to put it together as what are they trying to explain. That framework is understanding the problem, the solution they're offering. So it's the customer problem first, then the solution they're offering to solve that problem, the motivations behind the organization, the differentiators or the wow factors for the brand and the organization, and that evolves over time, the connections, how are they actually going to market and reach the audience, and then finally the obstacles. And that's something that tends to be missed or hidden under the carpet, as you were. It's a case of making sure that the obstacles are being discussed and thought about, and the opportunities are thought about as well. What might happen if the obstacles arise, and how will you overcome them? So we wanted that to be part of the story.
Amazing, amazing. And you talked a little about who is this tool for. It's a sort of who are you targeting with this tool? Can you go a little more into that in terms of is it the one-man band, as we usually call him, to who? Like talk to me a little about that.
Sure. Well, I mean, fortunately for us, we've tested this out a lot in various formats. So starting with the British Library days, anyone could attend, and it literally was students, one-man bands, through to large international organizations sending their staff along. So there's a real variety. And also then there's marketing and branding practitioners who are trying to improve on their own skills and maybe see what we're up to as well, and take some of the ideas, which we're quite happy with. We're there to share it. I think in an ideal situation, it's ambitious entrepreneurs, those that want to grow, because if they don't, then they're not really that keen on getting their story right. They're just happy with business as usual. And this is about going the extra 10%, doing more than the other companies, so that yes, it's hard work, but the outcome is going to be that much bigger. And that's something we share with people that attend the course as well. It's a case of being just a bit better than the others to stand out and to beat the competition. Even if there's a pitch of 10 other companies, there's still got to pick that one. But you don't have to be that different to win. In addition to that, there's kind of I guess in terms of stage, startup stage, companies have been around for maybe 1 to 3 years. Startups are a wide term though. It could be a very big company and still a startup, but also into scale up stage. And that's based on our accelerator program experience. Those companies are really focused on growth. those are raising investment because they know they've got a good idea, but they also need the financial backing to make things happen. They need to pay for staff, they need to pay for the technology, they need to produce the product. And so they're the ones that are seriously looking about growth in the next 3 to 5 years. And at the same time, their brand story and their marketing activities and what they pitch to investors and ultimately then the customers in the future, that has to all be right. So if there's a real need, that's a really good market for us. And then there's the third market, which is the larger organizations, which have brand managers, communications managers, marketing people, sales people that need the framework, need the ingredients to make sure what they're doing is correct, and can be effectively put into their systems in the most efficient way. So quite often using our courses, there'll be marketing and brand managers or coming to the workshops and the webinars. They'll be utilizing the framework and taking it back into their teams and larger organizations.
Nice, very nice. So how is this tool, the Story Cube, how is it different from the alternatives? Like what are some of the alternatives that are out there, and then how is that different from what you have?
Yeah, so we get compared to things like the value proposition canvas, partly the business model canvas, because we touch on the business side of things, particularly with the obstacle side of the cube. Sometimes Start With Why from Simon Sinek, and he's got the golden circle, that his famous video on the TED Talks. And there's a few other tools and platforms out there, and a lot of coaches and business advisors and brand specialists, so that they'd be competitors as well. But the main thing for us is about simplicity. We can teach, and we do teach, and we do share our ideas on lots of different parts of running a business. But for the sake of Story Cube, it's all about the brand story. It's all about helping people explain what they do in the most succinct way. And we made a decision quite early on to focus on that, even though we could help with market research, we could help with delivering the brand identity, we could help with building the website and taking the brand to market. But for Story Cube itself, it's all about what's the foundation, what's the core of the brand that you then build on. It's also actionable. We've seen so many online courses and webinars which are full of great content, just like so much content, but it's hard to know what do you start with, and which part is right and which part is not quite right for you. And you could spend hours and days online getting information from experts and online blogs and articles and things like that. So we wanted to try and simplify and make sure that what they can do is whoever takes the course or joins a webinar or talks to us one-to-one in terms of a coaching session, they can take away something tangible and they can take action on their business almost straight away. We're in the process of developing literally an action a day for people to take, which they'll get through an email campaign delivered to their inbox, and they can take action on that straight away so they can make a real difference with their business. And then the last point is making it concise. So that's part of simplicity, really, is keeping it to the 6 core sides, and so that it's easy to remember, or easier to remember. It can be a real challenge when pitching, when selling, when trying to inspire people. What do you say next, and how much information do you share with people? So we want to try and summarize that in the 6 key areas. You don't have to share each of those 6 areas, but the information we share tries to help people summarize that in the easiest way possible.
Yeah, that's so powerful. I mean, this show is about helping businesses to take action, entrepreneurs, those who are getting started, helping to take action on specific things that will grow, like will allow you to grow and allow you to control your growth. We always say you choose the tools that would help you to control or rule that growth. because it can be, growth can be controlled. You can grow massively, wildly, but you have to be in the driver's seat. And you said something earlier about action. So you've got these actionable things that you can do at the end of each of the sides, or as you're interacting with this tool. Tell me some specifics, some specific action, or give me some examples of some specific actions that you can actually take, just kind of from using the tool.
Sure. Okay. So just to summarize the sides again, we've got the 6 key sides for Story Cube, and this is reflected in the online course as well. So we give people the chance to do it themselves in their own time around the day-to-day runnings of a business. The first side is about the customer problem and validating that it's a tier 1 problem. And the key thing there is that it's a really important customer problem that they just have to solve. They might be solving it themselves at the moment. They might be using it, solving it with a competitor, but they have to solve it. So for the brands that we work with and that use Story Cube, it's to really understand, is there a big enough problem that's important enough for them to therefore provide that solution? And those are the 2 sides that we start with. So the structure of the course is a case of taking people through the theory, and we do that through video and through text and illustration. And we guide people on, okay, what does this mean? What question are we trying to answer? What is the customer problem? Is it a tier 1 problem? And have you validated this? And then we take them through the guides of how to do that. So in that case, it will be about market research, about getting the product out there to a certain extent, or hosting focus groups and surveys and interviews, making sure you truly understand the audience and having a clear idea of who that customer or the audience is. That's then taken through to examples from other brands, and we want to bring it to life because it's not always easy to understand with the theory. So we share examples of companies we've worked with, companies that we admire, and companies that are well known, so that there's a variety there, so people can understand where they fit in and how it relates to them. And we mix businesses as well. Sometimes they're B2B, sometimes they're B2C, to consumer. Sometimes it's about service-based businesses like accountancies and solicitors and agencies. And sometimes it's about products. It could be digital apps all the way through to real-world products that are manufactured. And then the last stage of each side of the cube are 3 key tasks. They're not necessarily based on difficulty, but it generally is an easy, quick version. What can you do right now without much thought? In the case of understanding the customer problem, if we even go with the assumption that they might not have any customers, it's a case of, okay, well, where do your audience hang out? Is it a Facebook group? Is it anyone in your networks, your family and friends? Who can you talk to now? And just get some feedback. And can you do that today? Can you jump on the phone?
This podcast is sponsored by MeisterTask, the most intuitive task manager on the web. MeisterTask is an easy-to-use project management tool. Makes it easy and fun and colorful to get all your projects managed in one place. As an entrepreneur, I use MeisterTask to help me manage all of my projects. I can drag and drop different tasks. I can assign key people to the task. I can set deadlines and schedules and enjoy just beautiful colors while I do that. So if you are interested in trying MeisterTask, go to meistertask.com/DMT tools. That's meistertask.com/DMT tools. And you can sign up for a free trial when you upgrade to the Pro plan. So get started for free today and invite your team members and get productive together.
Can you email some people? And then there's an intermediate task, and then another task that takes a bit longer. So we give them a variety of ways to test this out. And these aren't one-time things. It's a do it now, test it, learn from it, iterate, and come back to it. So for example, a survey will take time to write. A really good survey will take time to write and launch and share. You then have to analyze the results, and then from that can decide, well, would it be good to do focus groups? Because then we can get under the skin of what we're trying to answer here. And then based on those focus groups, would it be good to do interviews, one-to-one interviews with the key people in those focus groups that are really becoming the target customer, and can really shed some light on what your product is. And those two sides are problem and solution, really about the product itself. The rest of the cube I'll just run through very quickly. The next one's about motivations, understanding why you're doing what you're doing. And it's relevant for people that are just starting out. Obviously, they might have stopped a career and stopped full-time employment and want to do something on their own, but they've got to keep focused. Or it could be a company 10 years in the game and they've lost sight of what they're doing. So the why is good for them to motivate, maybe motivate their team as well, but also motivate their customers, because it gives added meaning behind the product. And then that leads through to differentiators, which is probably the simplest form of branding. How do you stand out? And being clear that you probably have 10 or 15 differentiators based on experience, expertise, maybe awards, press coverage, case studies, testimonials, but which ones do you talk about? And that's the important thing. And again, we give different exercises, partly to extract that information, but also to help communicate that clearly, which ones are going to resonate most. The connections as a whole marketing angle, it's all about marketing channels and understanding the sales funnel, how to get people to believe in what you're doing. And then, as I mentioned before, the obstacles is, okay, there's competitors out there, there's horrible things like the pandemic that's out there, there's the unknowns, there's the knowns, there's the challenge of getting investment sometimes, there's the case of product quality not being what you want, employees maybe not sticking around and helping put in the right direction. All these things need to be assessed and covered, and particularly for potential new investors and partners, the obstacles might be an important part of the story, because they need to understand, well, have you covered off all this area? Do you understand what the tricky things are going to be when running a business? So it's as much about the brand story as about the business as a whole as well.
Very well. That I like that very much. And if listeners are interested in this tool, I mean, what should they do or need to do to use this tool? Like, is it free? Is it freemium? Is it a paid? To talk to me a little about the business model for those who are interested in it.
Yeah, sure. We started Story Cube with an aim to make it as simple as possible for anyone to pick this up. So that's been the core of our motivation. It's to try and democratize entrepreneurship to a certain extent, and to share our knowledge in the best way. We do a lot of one-to-one consultancy, as you'd expect from an agency, but we wanted to do one-to-many. So we've got a variety of options. So the framework is delivered in a few formats. One is through the course, the online course, and we actually use another great tool called Teachable, which a lot of courses use, and they provide the platform for us to do that very simply. There's a cohort process where we have these mini accelerators or online sprints, and we can bring together the same sector organizations to work with us directly through webinars and an online Slack group, but they have access to the course as well. And then we provide coaching, and that's for organizations or individuals that really want one-to-one support and they want guidance. So they get access to the online course or the frameworks, sometimes the sprint as well, but they also get to join us on a one-to-one basis, myself and Robbie, and we actually go through their company organization and help them with the process of storytelling. So in the course itself, we've got three options. One is completely free, so people can try it out, and it gives a taster, an essential sort of understanding of what the Story Cube framework is. The second one is called the little one, and that's only £25 and the equivalent in dollars. And that gives more insight, more examples, more exercises. So for people that want to dip their toe in, that's the one to go for. And then there's the third course is the big one, and that's got everything, the examples, the exercises, the framework, lots of video content that we've pre-recorded, lots of guidance, and it enables people that join that to join a membership as well, because we want to create a community of entrepreneurs that can support each other, and there'll be access to further webinars with expert guests as well, and Q&A sessions with myself and Robbie. So there is a whole variety of ways they can do that. Essentially, the best way to find out is to go to storycube.co.uk.
Nice. So storycube.co.uk is where you can go to find out more information around sort of like the pricing and how to access the course and which ones to start with and so forth. So I like that. So I know staying in business for years has not been easy. You know, I'm an entrepreneur too. I've been in business for years. And usually the questions are around, you know, how have you done it to this point? You know, what would you say has been the best thing or was the best thing since you started out?
It's tricky though. I mean, so staying in business is tough and staying motivated, and that's another reason for Story Cube, is to keep people motivated, and to give them something to go back to. So I mean, essentially, even for ourselves, actually running the house as an agency, and advising clients on a one-to-one basis, we would tend to go back to our own framework, to make sure that we are going through the process. So one piece of advice is to have a process, to constantly review that process and refine it, and to improve on it, to make sure that what you do today will help you tomorrow. We've been in business as the house for 12 years. Before that, I was freelancing, consulting, so it's been an evolution. There are times when I think, shall I get a job and go and work for someone else and take a different angle? But I think the key is, if you are running a business, whether it's a small one or a big one, is to adapt, to constantly learn every day, and to be open to new things, because there have been times where we have been open to projects which we didn't have a huge amount of experience in, but it's opened up opportunities in the future. So for example, animation projects popped onto our radar, not something we considered, and then for the next 5 to 10 years, that's what we did on a monthly basis. But without taking that leap, it would never have happened. Awesome. The other thing is to keep talking, to keep networking, and to keep meeting people. So I like opportunities like this, because the more people you meet, the more opportunities there are.
No, absolutely, and it's great advice. That's great advice for those who are listening. So is there anything that I didn't ask you that you'd like to share with us today?
Well, in terms of Story Cube, we always leave people with one thing, and that's to say, is your story cube, as in, is it CUBE? And that's it, the quickest way and the best way to remember it. And those letters we've put together to stand for 4 things. So the first one is it concise? And as concise as appropriate for the situation. So maybe a networking event, 30 seconds, but maybe a sales pitch or a pitch for investment, 3 or 4 minutes. It depends on the audience. Is it unique? Again, it doesn't have to be completely unique. Nothing is completely unique in the world,
right?
But unique enough to stand out, unique enough for people to go, oh, that's interesting, tell me more. Is it believable? Can you back it up with stats and case studies and something else that will support your story, so that people will believe in you, will trust you, and want to know more? And then the last bit, is it engaging? So have you told that story in an engaging way, perhaps? Or is it told in an engaging way on your website, maybe through an animation? Or is it done in an engaging way on a sales call or an email? Have you made it fun? Because we're all in business. and business can be a bit boring sometimes, particularly in the corporate world.
Yeah.
But we're all human at the end of the day, and so we need to stand out by the way we talk about things and the personality we put behind it.
Nice. Is your story cube, guys? So you gotta check in with that. I love that. Is your story cube? We gotta get the story cubed up. And you definitely need to be having a conversation with Michael, or check out the website for Story Cube. So can you repeat the website again, Mike? It's
Sure. It's storycube.co.uk.
Yeah, so storycube.co.uk. And I usually have a question as well, which is basically, what are the books that you are reading? And I always like to know what books my guests are reading, and what podcasts are you listening to. And I know we talked earlier about you being on Clubhouse. I'd love to know what kind of rooms you're in when you're on Clubhouse. So let's probably start with the books. What books are you reading these days?
Yeah, the books. One of my favorites is the E-Myth. It had enlightened me to understand the difference as a craftsperson, as a graphic designer, moving through to management, moving through to entrepreneurship, and juggling those three, and knowing when to handle or change those hats, and to back away from certain areas. So anyone who's going through that process of knowing their craft but feels more driven to entrepreneurship and creating something bigger, that's a really good one. And Simon Sinek, again, I mentioned him earlier, but the Start With Why, and other books that he's got, they're always pretty powerful and eye-opening. And one more book actually, from Daniel Priestley. He's an Australian guy, but he's based in the UK, and he talks about the key person of influence. And it's all about putting yourself forward, promoting yourself as an individual, and creating your own personal brand, which is so important for startups and scale-ups, particularly founder-led ones. But even for teams with directors, we often say to companies we work with, your senior team need to put themselves out there as well. It's not just the company; it's the people in the company. So they're really important too.
Nice. So it's the team. You said the name of the book was Team Influence. Is that what's the name of that?
Key person of influence?
Key person of influence. Okay, so key person of influence, and you mentioned Start With Why, and also E-Myth Revisited, right? Awesome. Any podcasts you're listening to these days?
Not a big podcast man, even though I'm giving one. But I need to get into them more, so I have to pass on that one for now.
Well, I hope this one becomes a favorite, one of the ones that you're listening to for sure. And then, Clubhouse, like when you're on Clubhouse, what kind of rooms are you usually hang out in?
So with Clubhouse, I'm still quite early to it, but I basically wait a little bit to be led by my network. And fortunately, my network is in the branding, pitching, accelerator, startup world. So it's really interesting to hear different ways of people talking about their experience of pitching for investment, getting partnerships, the challenges of sales, the challenges of new business. So those are the rooms I generally hang out in. It's really powerful to listen to so many other people, and the range of expertise too, and to get that insight all for free. I think it's amazing what technology can do, and you don't need official platforms. It's just allowing people to connect. So yeah, those sort of rooms are ones that I'd recommend, and it helps me refine my craft as well.
Nice, absolutely. This has been so great, and I appreciate you coming in and sharing this with us. We're always looking for creators like yourself, and even master users of tools, toolkits, framework that can really actually help other businesses to grow. Any recommendations that come to mind, and who should we be talking to around any other tools or toolkit that you might know, even out there in UK, anywhere in the world, or for that matter, of course, because I think growth can happen anywhere, and should happen anywhere. But we really want to help our entrepreneurs and our small business owners to be able to do that quickly, right?
Yeah.
So any recommendations on any other tools, anyone we should be talking to?
Well, in terms of tools, there's a couple that I'm looking at the moment. I'm just about to start using. There's one called Meet Alfred, and that's to help with LinkedIn. It's an automation tool, and it helps you reach out. And I find LinkedIn such a powerful tool, particularly for business to business.
Yeah.
And it's getting better. It's seems to have really upped its game in terms of actually helping people to connect and reach each other. Another one's very similar vein is Expandy, with an I at the end. And that again, it helps you automate your messages and your connections with LinkedIn, and to reach people. And I like that network because everyone, or I find the majority of people I talk to are happy to be contacted because it's a business environment, and they are there to be helped and supported in various ways. So as long as you have something useful to share, then it's a great way to do that in a more efficient way.
Nice. So hello, Alfred and Expandy.
Yeah, that's it.
Awesome. Sweet. Well, Michael, so glad that you were able to join us. Thank you so much for your time, and I really appreciate it. All the best with Story Cube. I definitely will be checking that out, and I encourage you listeners to go ahead and check it out as well, and see how best you can utilize that tool to control your growth. So, well, thank you so much, Michael. I really appreciate it, and it won't be the last time because we'll get you back here to talk to us again about some of the other things that you're working on in the future.
That sounds good. Thank you very much for having me, Ricardo.
That was Michael Murdoch from Story Cube. I really hope you enjoyed that conversation. Don't forget to cube up your story. If your story isn't cubed up, you really need to look at Story Cube and see how best that framework can actually help you. Always happy to bring you a new tool, a new framework, a new kit that can really help you to grow and control the way you grow. And so thank you so much for listening. Don't forget to subscribe to us. Don't forget to rate us and leave us a review. A review is super important for us to know how we're doing. So until next time, folks, choose a tool to rule your growth. Talk soon.